I've been in private practice for 22 years. I have a specialty in internal health. So basically what that means is that I deal with the structure of the body, with the chiropractic, adjustments, posture, stretches, exercises, things mechanically. And I also work nutritionally with the body, with the digestion system, hormones, immunity, allergies, skin issues. I deal with any metabolic stuff that goes on in the body. And I also deal with the emotional component too, that we'll kind of get into a little bit. So, a little bit about me is that I've been in practice for 22 years, and I have been here in Naperville for about 10 years. I'm involved with the Chamber of Commerce for the past 10 years. I've also been involved with the JCs, working the Fling. I was on the executive committee in 2016. I've written for local and national magazines, writing articles. I'm a published author. I've also been talking to annual conferences for other doctors and practitioners, with like 180 doctors and practitioners in the audience. So I've kind of been around, and I'm very passionate about connecting with people, educating people, and helping them to understand how the body works so that they know how to better take care of themselves. Because here in this country, we're just uneducated about how the body works, and we're, let's face it, lazy when it comes to our health, because our health is not a priority. So health is not really hard, it just has to be a priority. So when things happen in the body, there's a cause and effect relationship that happen in the body. So when this happens, there's this cascade of events that happens in the body. So wouldn't you like to know what that first domino is that falls over, so then you can understand, because the 10th and 11th domino are what the symptoms are, what your health condition is. So when you're chasing the 10th and 11th domino, and all you're doing is doing medication, well, there's no healing that actually takes place in the body. So what my job is with my patients is to try to understand where that first domino is, and it's different for everybody. And wouldn't you like to put your focus and your energy on being able to manage that and take better care of this better first? Because I don't know if you know this about the body, but the body is an amazing machine, and it knows exactly how to heal itself. So when you take care of that first domino and you support normal function, guess what? The body does not have a choice. It has to heal. And this is kind of my approach to health. Because what happens is that health and disease are on the exact same spectrum. They're just on opposite sides. So when your body is weak, when your body is subluxated, when your organs and tissues are malnourished, it doesn't have a choice. It has to stay broken. It has to stay damaged, and it has to express illness. But when your body is strong, when your nervous system is in clear communication with your brain and your body, your organs and tissues are fed, guess what? It has to express health. It's what it was designed to do. So we don't need to outsmart the body. We just need to give it what it needs so that it can do its job. And it does its job very, very well. Okay? So today, we're going to focus specifically on the digestion system. So in order to understand how the digestion symptoms and the system goes wrong and what health issues occur, we first need to understand how it actually works. So it's going to be a little bit of a science lesson here today. So we're going to deepen your understanding of what normal digestion looks like. Then we're going to identify the cause of weak digestion, and then ultimately show you exactly where to put your focus first so that your body can actually heal. So let's kind of dive into this. Anybody ever bake cake? Yeah. Anybody bake a cake correctly the first time? Sometimes, right? But there's a lot that kind of goes into baking a cake, and you've got to follow the recipe exact, right? So first you got to prep the ingredients. Then you got to measure out the ingredients. You got to bring all the ingredients to room temperature so they mix well. You got to mix them. Then you got to preheat the oven, but you got to set it at the correct temperature. Then you got to grease the pan. Bake the cake at the correct length because you don't want to burn the cake and dry it out. Let it cool, and then you icing and decorate the cake. So you can see there's a priority of what needs to be done first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Well, what happens if you just grease the pan and put the pan in the oven first and actually mix the ingredients? Or what if you just put the flour and the cake batter in the pan and then put that in the oven, right? You're not going to get a cake. The point I'm trying to make is that health is the exact same way. There's a priority of what happens in the body, and if you know what the priority system is, then, and you find out what's going on, then it's easy to help the body heal. Because just like this recipe, there's certain rules or laws that you got to follow. There are laws of health, and Mother Nature knows best. So there are 4 laws of the body that you have to follow. Number 1 is that law of sanitation. You got to keep the body clean. This goes for inside, outside, but also too, not just physically clean. You got to keep your mind clean too. Stinking thinking is not going to get you anywhere either. So it's the 6 inches between your ears that also counts as well. Second law is movement. We got to move the body, right? Health on a cellular level is all about fluid exchange. If I'm a cell and I'm only asking you to do 2 things, give me my food so that I can have fuel for energy and do my job, but at the same time, take away my waste. If you can do those 2 things at a cellular level, at a tissue level, at an organ level, then that cell, that tissue, that organ can do its job very, very good for a long period of time. Nourishment, right? We've got to nourish the body. Just because you stick something in your mouth and you swallow it doesn't mean that it gets digested or absorbed or utilized by your cells and your organs. So you have to put the right nutrients in, and the body's got to be able to digest it. And lastly, the law of recuperation or recreation, which is sleep. But it's not just sleep. It's learning how to recreate, right? Learning how to veg on the couch and watch TV or read a book. It's about, having fun, going out with friends, doing something that brings you joy, right? Because let's face it, as adults, we tend to forget that sometimes. We have all these responsibilities and we forget to give ourselves permission to actually play. So law of recuperating and recreating is also very, very important. So like I said in the beginning, there's this priority sequencing that happens. So when the body is weak and dysfunctional, what causes it to become weak and dysfunctional? Well, you have a poor diet and poor lifestyle choices. Poorly manage your stress. You have nutritional deficiencies and toxicities in the body, which is then expressed through muscle contraction and subluxations. Subluxations, I'm going to go over that a little bit later in detail, but basically what that is that when you have a misalignment in your spine, it causes stress in your nervous system and it weakens the communication between your brain and your body. We'll go in more detail on that in a little bit. Then you become sympathetically dominant, where you have this subconscious nervous system, which is that fight or flight response. So when you're on the go all day long, right, your body becomes sympathetically dominant, and when you have subluxations and these nutritional deficiencies, and you're stressed out, your body can't heal. So you have a hard time resting, you have a hard time sleeping, you have a hard time digesting your food, and the sympathetic dominance is basically what kind of takes over. So then what happens to the body? It has to live in a weakened state, which is then going to express symptoms and disease. So here's your sequence of how the body becomes weak and out of balance. So on the flip side, when you have a strong and balanced body due to healthy diet, lifestyle choices, you manage your stress well, your body is nutritionally fed, regular chiropractic care, balanced nervous system and organs, it has to express health. It's what it is designed to do. And when it comes to digestion, both health and disease both need to be built on a daily basis. They need to be earned. So when you don't make health a priority and you go about your day and you're stressed out and you're eating a lot of fast foods, you are building disease in the body. That's why they call them chronic degenerative diseases. You don't just wake up one day and, oh, I have high blood pressure. Oh, I've got arthritis. Oh, I've got osteoporosis. I got diabetes. I've got cancer. That stuff just doesn't happen overnight. They happen because your body is slowly declining over years and decades, which gets you there. It's like I said earlier, right? There can be an old 40-year-old and a young 70-year-old. And it all depends on how well you take care of yourself. Because I don't know if you've thought about this, but what do you want your last 10 years of your life to be? You want to be vibrant, have all the energy in the world, be able to pick stuff up off the ground, be independent, and live life to the fullest, and let your light just flicker out one day? Or do you want to be stuck in a wheelchair, not remembering your name or your friends or who's around you? Those are choices, by the way. And it all depends on the habits that you have on a daily basis. Now, it's not about being perfect, but it's about supporting normal function and giving the body the chance to do what it needs to do. So they both need to be earned. All right, digestion. The process of breaking down food by mechanical and enzymatic action into substances that can be used by the body. So in order to have strong digestion, there are certain things that have to function well in the body. Number one, you have to chew your food thoroughly. There's so many people, my patients that come in, that have terrible digestion, and the first thing I ask them, do you chew your food? They have to stop and think because they don't know. Most people are so unaware of how they chew their food. So if you take 3 bites and swallow your food whole, how can you expect the body to digest that? Second thing that needs to happen is you need to have clear communication from the nervous system, from your brain to your gut. And this vagal tone to the gut is very, very important, and we'll get into that in a little bit, and I'll show you about that. And then lastly, you gotta have the enzymes to be able to digest and break things down. So what needs to be digested? When you eat food, what needs to be digested?
Nutrients.
Nutrients.
Vitamins.
Okay. Any other guesses?
I should say everything, but.
So basically, you guys didn't know I was gonna make you think this morning, did you? So basically, it's the macronutrients, right? The protein, the fats, the carbohydrates, okay? Those are what need to be digested. Vitamins and minerals, they're just there. They don't need to be digested, but you have to break down the macronutrients, okay? So just anatomy of the digestion system, right? Your mouth, your esophagus, stomach, liver, gallbladder, small intestine, large intestine, and colon. So just kind of a quick overview of that. So what does normal digestion look like? Well, it all starts in the mouth with chewing your food. Then we have this thing that's called saliva. We have, 3 different glands in the parotid, submandibular, and sublingual. And all 3 of those glands secrete a specific enzyme to digest protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Now, it's not meant to digest the whole thing, it's just to start the process, okay? Then once we get into the stomach, what has to occur in the stomach? Well, you have to produce stomach acid, okay? What is the purpose of stomach acid? To lower the pH. What does the lower pH do? It actually neutralizes harmful pathogens that can get into the body. It also activates enzymes. So your stomach also secretes enzymes in the stomach to digest protein, but they secrete it in the inactive form. Once the pH gets low enough, that's what then activates those enzymes to start and finish. We'll start the digestion of protein as well. Secretion of enzymes, and then at the bottom of the stomach, the food becomes into this liquidy, pulpy chyme that then has to leave the stomach and go into the small intestine. So once this chyme leaves the stomach, then what happens? Well, your gallbladder has to contract, right, secreting the bile. This neutralizes the stomach acid. So the stomach acid is the most acidic thing that the body makes. Bile salts, and the bile is the most alkaline thing that the body makes. Because if you have stomach acid leaving the stomach and you don't have anything there to neutralize it, it's going to burn the duodenum. So how ingenious is this mechanism that the body has, our creators made? So that acid's coming out, the bile's being released and neutralize all the acid. But the other thing that the bile salts do is it helps to decrease the fat. Once this happens, then the pancreas, which is right there, has to secrete enzymes that can start and help with the digestion process. Okay? Now, once it gets past the first part of the small intestine there, then the small intestine also secretes enzymes. And the purpose of this is in the small intestine, is to absorb the nutrients. So in order to absorb the nutrients, you need a tremendous amount of surface area to get the nutrients that are in the lumen of the GI tract into the body. And as you can see here, right, we've got the muscle, the lumen, all these finger-like things. We'll get into that, but you'll see how that intestinal wall, and here's just a snapshot of what it looks under a microscope too, okay? Now, when you are taking the lumen and you're breaking it down, right, you've got all these different processes that have this microvilli up here that are on each one of these cells, that are on each one of these finger-like things. And the whole purpose of that is to create more of a surface area, okay? And this is kind of what it looks like. You've got these cells that line it that look like this. So you got these columnar cells that have the microvilli on the top where all the nutrients are then being absorbed. Now, if you took the small intestine and all these microvilli and you spread it out, it would be about the area of a surface of a tennis court. So, that's a lot of surface area. And that's what your body needs to be able to absorb all that. So once we get into the small intestine, then we go through the ileocecal valve and get into the large intestine. And what is the purpose of the large intestine? Well, it's there to absorb water and electrolytes, but it's also there to produce and absorb vitamins. And we'll get into this in a little bit, talking about your microbiome and why your microbiome is so important. But what is the other purpose of the large intestine? Well, to form and propel feces. We've got to get the toxins and things that are the fiber and stuff out of the body, okay? Now, some other tidbit facts about the gastrointestinal tract is that it's about 25 to 30 feet long. There's 2 layers of muscle around it, and then there's an inner lining of mucosa that is there to protect it. Now, the mucosal lining is there for several purposes. Number one, it's to help lubricate the body, or the gastrointestinal tract, to slide food through, because we have an outer layer of muscle and an inner layer of muscle that do different things. There's a circular layer, we'll show you this in a little bit, and there's a longitudinal layer. So the circular layer helps to contract this way in the gut to mix the food and contents. The longitudinal stuff helps to slide it through. And then you got the mucus layer there that helps to lubricate that, but it's also there to protect against the acid and the bile and things like that as well. But also in that mucosal lining are immunoglobulins, antibodies, IgA, that helps with the immune system. Because once you want your primary defense to be in your gut, because that's the first line of attack against insults into the body, okay? So how much of our immune system is in our gastrointestinal tract? Do you guys know? Good question, right? 70% of our immune system is in our gastrointestinal tract. So if you've got weak digestion and you can't produce enough hydrochloric acid, guess who has to clean up that mess of all that undigested food? The immune system, right? How many of you know people who are sick all the time? This is part of the reason, right? When you have weak digestion, your immune system has to clean that up. So then when your immune system is always turned on, this is where hypersensitivities come into play. And you can have allergies or food sensitivities or whatever else is going on. Okay? And you're very susceptible to outside and foreign invaders. How many bowel movements are we supposed to have a day? 2. I see 2. 1. Any other takers?
Probably double that.
So 4 or 3? So normal bowel movements are 1 to 3 bowel movements a day. This is how you know you're running a tight ship. 30 to 60 minutes after you eat, you're supposed to have a bowel movement. So how many of you know people that have a bowel movement like once a week? Right? What's their health like?
They're cranky.
That's right. They sure are. Okay. And then the last thing we got to talk about is the microbiome. Now, with the gastrointestinal tract, here's a snapshot of this again, but you can see that you've got this longitudinal layer of muscle here, you've got this circular layer of muscle here, and then you've got this thick mucosal layer, okay? And this is really, really important to have the health and maintain the integrity of the lining of the gut. So you want to know what your immune system looks like? These things right here, this is your immune system. These are called aggregated lymph follicles, or ALF, a little alien from Melmac. So that's what it looks like in your gut. Now, let's talk about the microbiome. How important is the microbiome?
Absolutely essential.
Correct, exactly. How many of you know what the microbiome actually is? You have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so some people have, okay. So how do you know it has to be healthy if you don't even know what it is, right? I'm so glad I put this in here. All right, settle down. Now, the microbiome, if you want to define it, comprises of multiple microorganisms, including fungus, viruses, and most abundant of all, bacteria. Now, we have probably an upward of 100 trillion viruses and bacteria in our gut at any given time. There's 10 times more microbiome bugs in our small intestine than there are cells in the body. Okay? So you can kind of consider the microbiome as the 12th organ in the body, because when that is out of balance, this just wreaks havoc on the entire body. Okay? So we have symbiosis, which is a healthy balance where the bacteria and human host equally benefit from each other. So we're supposed to have the healthy and the good bacteria there. But what happens is that when we have dysbiosis, we have an imbalance between the types of organisms in the gut and thought to contribute to a range of illnesses. So we've got good guys and we've got bad guys. Now the good guys are supposed to flourish, and it helps to keep the bad guys in check. But what happens is that when this balance shifts and changes, this is what then leads to leaky gut issues and other issues that are going on in the body. And we'll show you exactly what can cause that imbalance to happen in a little bit. And then if it becomes very extreme, you have something that's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO, which is an excessive unhealthy balance of bad bacteria in the small intestine. Now these people who have this, they are bloated like all of the time. It doesn't matter what they eat, they're so uncomfortable. They feel better when they don't eat. Okay, so this is a very extreme state. So the moral of the story is with the microbiome is that the more diverse the microbiome, the better health that you have. The limited microbiome, the poorer health that you have. So what influences the good guys and the bad guys? Well, to increase your microbiome diversity, you need to increase fiber, right? Where do you get the fiber from? Variety of vegetables and fruits. I've got to put fruits in there. Fruits and vegetables, right? Losing weight, fasting, right? When we fast, we don't give the bad guys a chance to feed off of the food that we're eating, and it allows the good guys to flourish and become more prevalent. Polyphenols, which is a phytonutrient that is in fruits and vegetables, and it has lots of different health benefits and properties for the gastrointestinal tract and the body as a whole. Fermented foods, all of these things help to increase the diversity of your microbiome. Now, one thing I want to mention here is that the variety matters. So many people eat the same foods over and over again. So you have to eat the different rainbows of the fruits and the vegetables that are out there, because the variety really does make a difference. So what decreases the microbiome and gives the bad guys a chance to flourish? Well, snacking, eating lots of sugar or processed food, antibiotics, alcohol, GMO foods. Do you guys know what a GMO food is? Okay. Forgot to mention too in the beginning that I'm on social media on Facebook and Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel under my name, Dr. Keith Giaquinto. And I have other topics and lectures up on there. One specifically called Food, Friend or Foe, where I go through and talk about all the different types of food like dairy, soy, gluten, what GMO foods are and all that. So if you're interested in wanting more about that, you can look me up and follow me on YouTube as well. Artificial sweeteners, overweight, being stressed, smoking. These are all things that help to decrease the diversity of the microbiome. Now, let's talk about some terms. Does anybody know what a probiotic is? What's a probiotic?
Probiotic is the bacteria.
Correct. Is it a good guy or a bad guy?
It should be a good.
Yes, correct. So probiotic is the organism. What's a prebiotic?
Yeah. Prebiotics are the foods that we eat that feed the bacteria.
Okay, perfect.
And they should be the good, well, if they feed them, they're the good food.
Okay, excellent, yes. Now, has anybody heard of a postbiotic? No, okay. So, you're right, Veronica. Prebiotics are what the good bacteria eat, namely the fiber. This is where the fruits and vegetables come into play. The probiotic is the good bacteria that is beneficial to our health and our gut. But a postbiotic, well, when you eat something, what do you got to do? You got to poop, right? So when we take fuel in, we got to do something, and then we poop stuff out. So a postbiotic is what the bacteria poop. The substance that good bacteria produce. And what are some of those substances? Well, B vitamins, K vitamins, amino acids, and substances called antimicrobial peptides that help to slow down the growth of harmful bacteria. The other postbiotic substances are short-chain fatty acids that helps the healthy bacteria to flourish. But these short-chain fatty acids also feed those columnar cells in your intestine. So it's kind of like a win-win situation. So if you've got enough probiotics and a healthy microbiome in balance, it should be able to maintain itself, provided that your diet and stress levels are under control. So what are some of these metabolites that the microbiome poop, these postbiotics? What does it help with in the body? Well, it helps with insulin resistance. It helps to balance out the digestion tract. It strengthens your immune system, reduces inflammation, reduces allergies. It's great for mental health, heart health, weight management, and it increases the nutrient bioavailability. These are all pretty good things. So can you see, if this is out of balance, how it can really be detrimental to your overall health? So, to summarize what normal digestion is, it first has to start with a clean diet, right? Organic, non-GMO foods, as much as possible. Chewing your food thoroughly. So the food enzymes and the enzymes in the saliva help it to mix. Predigestion occurs in the stomach about 30 to 60 minutes before stomach acids actually form. So it takes your stomach about 30 to 60 minutes to produce enough hydrochloric acid to activate the enzymes that are secreted by the stomach to finish the continue the digestion process, okay? Stomach enzymes, bile and pancreatic enzymes, and intestinal enzymes are then secreted as the food works through the gastrointestinal tract. When you break things down small enough, the nutrients can be easily absorbed into the body. And then waste products are eliminated. If you can do all these things efficiently, your body does not have a choice. It has to express health, okay? So, what does abnormal digestion look like? Well, constantly eating a poor diet, high in processed foods, GMO foods, fast foods. You can't answer this, Veronica.
Okay.
What makes a processed food processed?
Breaking down the nutrients.
Okay. Breaking down the nutrients in the food. Okay. What's one thing about processed food that a fruit or vegetable doesn't have? Like, what is the purpose of processing food? One purpose only: increase shelf life.
Yeah, it's almost fun.
Right?
Easier for the consumer too.
Correct. So when we process food, what is removed from the processed food?
Nutrients.
Enzymes and nutrients, right? That's why they can put something in a box, a bag, or a can, put it on a shelf, and it can stay there for a month or two and it won't spoil. What if you had a dozen apples in a bag, you put that on a shelf for a month, you come back, be able to eat that? Yeah, probably not. The main difference is the enzyme content. Processed food is devoid of enzymes, which then increases shelf life. Raw fruits and vegetables contain enzymes, which is that spark of life, and we'll get into exactly what enzymes are in a little bit. Eating too fast, not chewing your food. I had a patient who came in that suffered with IBS for 20 years, and he came to me originally for like musculoskeletal stuff, head and neck stuff, and I'm like, well, if you want to take care of your IBS, we can take a look into that. It's like, no, I'm pretty good. All right.
Yeah.
I know, right? So I said to him, I was like, well, do you chew your food? I don't know. Let me think. No, I'm a pretty fast eater. Okay. Think that's where your IBS is coming from? So I just challenged him to slow down and chew his food. Okay. Made a big difference for him. We then got into cleaning up some other stuff, but like, people don't realize that how fast they really do eat, and they don't chew. And for whatever reason, this seems to be the hardest task for my patients, some of my patients to handle or to get a hold on. I had one guy come in, it's like, Doc, I just can't chew my food. No, you can. You're just not used to doing it, So it literally took him like 4 months just to kind of change that one habit because it was so hard for him. So your body cannot produce enough digestive enzymes, right? Because if all you're eating is processed food, the food itself doesn't contain enzymes to help support and aid in the digestion process. You're asking your body to cough up a lot more of the enzymes, which is then going to strain the body. Okay? Essential nutrients are poorly absorbed into the body. Waste products accumulate, and this is where illness can occur. So what are some symptoms of poor digestion? Well, remember, get acid reflux or use antacids frequently. That's part of it. Bloating, distension, gas, abdominal cramping. Loss of appetite, especially for meat. Had a neighbor of mine, another little tidbit about the body. Your sense of smell and taste is directly linked to what your body needs or can or cannot digest. So I had a neighbor who could not stand the smell of meat at all. Bacon, burgers, it made her nauseated, and it just did not sit well with her. I'm like, all right, well, come in and let me check you out. So the 3 macronutrients, right? Protein, fat, and carbs. On the body, there are different stress points, or where I'm looking for muscle contraction, to see if that organ or that body process is nutritionally stressed and requires more enzymes. So over here is carbohydrate digestion, over here is protein digestion, and up on the sides of the head is fat digestion. So I'm like, all right, don't like the smell of meat, makes you nauseated, okay? So I hit those 3 stress points on her. The protein digestion stress point was rock hard. I'm like, huh, no wonder. So I give her some enzymes to help support and strengthen her body's ability to digest protein. She can eat and smell protein, no problem now. So when you give the body the right support that it needs, it will do its job. Intolerance of fat or spicy foods. Loss of meat and fat and spicy foods are signs of liver issues we were talking about earlier before the class. Intolerance of dairy products, grains, or sugars, right? Developing food sensitivities. Constipation and diarrhea, nausea and vomiting. So these are all pretty simple, easy to understand symptoms of poor digestion. And then sleepy after eating. How many of you get in that food coma after you eat? Right? That just doesn't happen on Thanksgiving. Right? This is a sign of weak digestion. All right, a little humor. What did the stomach say to the burp? If you're quiet, I'll let you out the back door. All right. So.
Someone's a bad dad.
Hey, I got plenty of them. Did you guys hear about that movie called Constipation? No? It's because it hasn't come out yet. Alright, so now we've just kind of gone through what normal digestion looks like. You guys now understand all the different moving parts that occur in normal digestion. So the $62 million question is then, what causes weak digestion?
Life choices.
Life choices, okay? Yes, that's part of it.
DNA. Perhaps.
DNA, so a genetic component?
How you're built.
That has very little to do with it, right?
Perhaps.
Like everybody has genetic strengths and everybody has genetic weaknesses. So it all depends on whether or not your lifestyle choices actually pulls that trigger. Because genes in your DNA can be turned on and off like a light switch. I don't know if you knew that or not. But, and our diet and lifestyle are what is be able to turn that switch on or off. So having a genetic predisposition for, say, like lung cancer or heart disease or diabetes in your family does not mean that it ever has to be expressed. So what causes weak digestion?
Poor choices.
What's that?
Poor eating.
Poor
Not
eating.
fueling your body right.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Stress. Stress is what causes weak digestion. Now, what people don't understand is that stress is really the only condition that we have to fight. This is the first domino that I was talking about. But what most people don't understand is that stress comes in 3 separate forms. Okay? We have mechanical stress on the body, talking about subluxations, talking about poor posture, old musculoskeletal injuries that may have not have healed correctly. You know, you sprained your ankle when you were in high school and it never fully healed, and you're still walking and got issues in restricted range of motion in your ankle, which is then affecting your knee and your hip and your pelvis, which is then affecting everything else in the body. Or an old shoulder injury that's pulling on the neck that hasn't healed correctly. I want to talk about subluxations in a moment, but this is what I'm talking about with mechanical stress, right? Poor posture. How many people have poor posture, right? So having poor posture is going to negatively affect your organ systems. The second form of stress is emotional. relationship issues, family, friends, coworkers, or boss. But not just relationship issues with other people. What is your relationship like with yourself? How kind are you to you? Right? We're our own worst critic. So if you have negative self-talk and stinking thinking going on, that's going to negatively affect your health. Finances, anxiety, depression, right? Are you a critical thinker, or do you have intense concentration for extended periods of time? When we use our brain a lot, it requires more nutrients. So if you've got like some mental health issue like anxiety or depression or these things, it's going to cause stress in the body. And the last form of stress is nutritional, which is diet, which is on the end of your fork, but also your body's ability to digest and absorb the nutrients that you actually eat. I have so many patients that come to me that eat very clean. They exercise regularly, but yet they still have all these health issues. So it's not a question of their diet and their lifestyle. It's a question of, is their body strong or is their body weak? And that's where what my world is and what I help them to restore and get back into balance. So, if you look at this, right? M-E-N. Men. Men make us sick. Stress is the cause of all disease. Men is the cause of all stress.
Yes, I know.
Okay? Yeah, I know. We gotta, hey, it's just a sticky factor, right?
Stick together.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, now, let's kind of get into the mechanical a little bit. So, subluxation. What is a subluxation? Well, the American Chiropractic Association defines it as a complex of functional and or structural and or pathological articular changes that compromise neural integrity and may influence organ system function and general health. That is a mouthful of a definition. So basically what they're saying there is that when the vertebrae don't move appropriately, it compromises the joint and it compromises the neural integrity, which is your brain's ability to communicate to your body. That's basically what they're saying there. Or the International Chiropractic Association states it much simply, a subluxation is a stress response. Any of you guys ever blow a fuse in your house? Overload it? So what do you gotta do to correct that?
Flip the switch.
Flip the switch, flip the breaker, exactly. This is what chiropractors do. When your body is overwhelmed with stress, mechanical, emotional, nutritional, it creates subluxations in the spine. So when you come in to get adjusted, it flips the switch. Subluxations, right, you can see the vertebrae and everything's lined up correctly. You can see this vertebrae is slightly out of place, which is going to put pressure on the joint and also the nerve. And when subluxations are present in the spine, what research shows is that it can decrease electrical transmission of that one nerve anywhere between 40 to 60%. So when is it a good idea to not have 100% communication between your brain and your body? Right? How do we communicate with each other? You get up and you go about your day, how do you communicate with the outside world? What's that? Talk to them. Okay, how else do we communicate? What'd you say? Body language, absolutely. What else? Anybody text anybody today? Send an email? Call them on the phone? In the old days, send a fax, right? Snail mail. So could you imagine if 50% of all of your external communication never got there? It never hit the target tissue or the target organ. How would that disrupt your day? What if you were a business? Would that business even thrive? And that's in one nerve, right? So we've got 24 vertebrae, we got 48 sets of nerves that come out from the spine that go to different areas of the body. So if you've got a 10% loss of function here, 20% here, 60% here, 80 or 40% here, you can see how cumulatively this is going to cause a lot of dysfunction in your spine, your nervous system. What does the body have to do to tell you that? Well, it has to express disease or illness. So how do you know if you've got a subluxation? If you notice in this definition, what's one thing it doesn't say? It has absolutely nothing to do with pain. Right? Pain only shows up in the body and in your neck and back in the most acute or extreme situation. But a lot of times you might have stiffness. A lot of times you might have tension. Right? It has nothing to do with pain. So let's look at your posture, right? When you look at yourself in the mirror, okay, look at the bottom of your ears. Are your ears level? Or are your ears off kilter? Is one ear higher than the other? Because this first vertebrae, the atlas, when that atlas is rotated, it's going to make one ear higher than the other. Okay? So you can look at your ears in the mirror. The other thing you can look at are your shoulders. What do you notice in the shoulders in this guy in the picture? Which shoulder is lower? Right, so it's pretty obvious, right? So that's how you can determine if you've got subluxations or muscle contraction in your spine, either in your neck or your mid-back, is look at your ears and your shoulders. So when you have an upper cervical subluxation, how does that negatively affect your gastrointestinal tract and your digestion? Well, we've got this thing called the vagus nerve, right? It comes down from the brainstem and it innervates the heart, the lungs, the stomach, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and adrenals, all the way up into the first half of the intestines. Okay? It's the longest nerve in the body. And when you have that subluxation there, it decreases that vagal tone that I was talking about earlier to the gut. When you have decreased vagal tone or neurological input from the brain to the gut, how does that negatively affect digestion? Well, it decreases the hydrochloric acid production in the stomach. It decreases enzyme secretion in the stomach. It decreases bile flow, GI motility, and GI blood flow. So this is a pretty powerful thing to happen. And I have patients that come into me all the time that have all kinds of digestion issues, but they don't have any neck or back pain. So it's not about the pain in the neck, it's more about how your body is functioning. So kind of to review this, right? Chewing your food thoroughly, vagal tone to the gut, nervous system communication, and enzymes. These are all important for you to have strong digestion. So let's talk about diet. We are 100% in control of what's on the end of our fork. Okay? So it all depends on what you put on it. If you eat what's on the left, what's going to happen? They are empty calories, food-like substances, toxins and chemicals. You're not actually eating food, okay? This is going to create inflammation, disease, and speed up the aging process. If you eat the stuff on the right that is more nutrient dense, that nourishes your cells and your organs and your tissue, this is going to build health, it's going to support homeostasis, fight disease, and slow the aging process. Now, one thing I want you to understand about diet, it is not about being perfect. I am not perfect by any means, right? But 80-20. If you've got 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, you got 21 meals, and you eat 16 or 17 of those meals are pretty healthy, then you can enjoy that other 20%. You know, I enjoy pizza. I love ice cream. I like whiskey, beer, right? But I don't have it all the time. So it's not about being perfect. If 80% of the time you eat healthy, then 20% of the time you can actually enjoy life, right? That recreating part I was talking about. Okay? Let food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. We should look at it no other way. Now, what the heck is an enzyme? Well, enzymes are a protein produced by living cells that catalyzes chemical reactions in organic matter. What the hell does that mean? Basically, they're the workers of the body. Okay? They are the only thing that has the ability to do work. We're talking about nutrients for the body, right? We've got our macronutrients, protein, fat, carbs. We've got our micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. But that raw material does not have any ability to do work. It's just the raw material. The enzymes are the workers that get all of it done. Okay? So imagine if we had a pile of all of this supplies. We're going to build a house. We've got all the concrete, all the wood, all the nails, the tools, the windows, the doors, the electrical, everything's there sitting in a pile. Well, is that going to build the house itself? No. Well, what if you had 2 workers working on that pile to build that house? Well, it's going to get built in a certain time frame with a certain amount of efficiency. Well, what if we put 10 workers on there? How about 100? Let's go 1,000. We put 1,000 workers on that pile. How fast is that house going to get built? Right? And in your body, what are the 2 main systems that are heavily dependent on enzymes? Digestion system. What else is located in the digestion system? Your immune system. Okay? So when you are under a lot of stress and eat poorly, don't chew your food, you can't produce hydrochloric acid and enzymes, you're exhausting those 2 systems. So then the rest of the body has to make up for that. Okay? And although the actions of enzymes cannot be seen, they are the driving force behind virtually every biochemical process that occurs in the body. Now, enzymes only basically do 2 things. They take one thing and they make it into 2. Another word for that is digest. Or they take 2 things and they put it into 1, which means that it builds or repairs. Dr. Edward Howe, in this book, Enzyme Nutrition, is like 20 years of his research. In this book, he states that enzymes are substances that make life possible. They are needed for every chemical reaction that takes place in the body. In both maintaining health and in healing, enzymes, and only enzymes, actually do the work. Does that make sense? Okay. So now, moving into digestion conditions and symptoms. So, heartburn, reflux. What's heartburn and reflux? You guys know?
Acid back in the esophagus.
Acid back in the esophagus, yeah. And what do you feel when that happens?
Burn.
Burn, yeah. Let's get burn. Heartburn, you know. Exactly. What's the cause of heartburn?
Your body's not creating enough of something to stop the acid from coming out.
I like the way you think, yes. Well, what is the medical community? What do they say is the cause of heartburn?
Too much acid is what they say.
Too much acid, right. Do you know that it is physiologically impossible for your stomach to create too much acid? It is impossible to do that. So there has to be another reason. Because when people have heartburn, what do? What does the medical community do to take care of that? Take an antacid, right? A proton pump inhibitor, which basically shuts down the pumps in the stomach that actually produce the acid. Does that sound like a good thing?
No.
Yeah. And when you take these proton pump inhibitors, you should only take them long term, or short term, I mean, right?
I was waiting for that.
You should only take them short term, because turning that off for long periods of time was what's one of the main things that stomach acid does. It destroys pathogens coming into the body. So if you can't produce hydrochloric acid and it shut down the pumps for a long period of time, are you not letting more pathogens and things into your microbiome and causing that imbalance? Say yes, right? Plus, taking them long term leads to stomach cancer, kidney failure, fractures, right? There's so much research that's coming out to saying that. So there has to be a different reason as to why people develop heartburn. Well, remember that mucosal lining I was talking about? What if that gets compromised? And then your body is then creating the acid, and then the acid is then hitting the gut wall, that then creates the burning process. Because the mucosal lining is there to protect it against that, okay? Taking the proton pump inhibitors, it helps with dysbiosis in the small intestine. It can then lead to bowel toxicity, right? And a whole host of other things. So this was a picture we showed earlier, and to kind of understand what a compromised mucosal lining looks like, it's something like this. This is where ulcers, when it's really bad and really severe, you develop an ulcer, okay? So the compromise of the mucosal lining is what causes the heartburn. And what causes the mucosal lining to become compromised? Stress. Men. Right? Okay. What about gallbladder issues or gallstones? The thing about gallstones and gallbladder issues is that when you have the inability to produce hydrochloric acid in the stomach, this is directly linked to your gallbladder function. You cannot separate the two. So when you can't produce enough hydrochloric acid in the stomach, your body then reabsorbs minerals from the gallbladder. When these minerals become reabsorbed into the body to balance it out, the bile becomes thick and sluggish. This is where gallstones form. And you can have a problem with fatty foods. So you cannot separate the two. Leaky gut, or the correct terminology for it, is intestinal permeability. So remember we were talking about these finger-like microvilli at the top of the columnar cells in the small intestine. So when we have a leaky gut issue, there's two things that happen. Due to the dysbiosis in the small intestine, due to inflammation, due to bloating, due to food, diet, right, antibiotics, it can destroy and compromise the lining of the intestinal wall. So then two things happen, right? These are really close-ups of the columnar cells. So we've got these proteins called tight junctions that exist between them to protect it from food and stuff getting in there. But what happens is when you have that inflammation, it breaks this open and it allows undigested food and toxins to get into your bloodstream. So it can happen paracellularly or it can happen transcellularly when the actual cell itself gets destroyed. Okay? This is what leaky gut is all about. Here's another picture of it. Right? You got healthy intestinal lining here, not so healthy here, due to inflammation and stuff. So you're allowing things to leak into your body that are not supposed to be there. So here are some causes of leaky gut, okay? And when you have leaky gut issues, then you can create food intolerances, your immune system becomes abnormal and dysfunctional, you can have autoimmune issues, and that can lead to a whole host of other things. So there's a lot that's kind of going on in here. Now, how do you know if you've got leaky gut? Most people don't. Because what's the one thing that the gut is lacking? Pain receptors. You don't have pain receptors in your gut. The only time you experience pain and abdominal pain is if you're bloated or distended, or if the muscles are cramping. But most people don't even know that they have this. They may have another health issue, right? But the leaky gut can be the cause of that. So, bowel toxicity. Let's move into the large intestine. So Crohn's disease, malabsorption, food sensitivities, these things can all occur in the small intestine. IBS, colitis, diverticulitis, they all happen in the large intestine. So it all depends on the location. But what causes these things to occur? What happens in the small and the large intestine are a direct result of what's not happening upstream, right? So if you're eating a poor diet, if you're not chewing your food, if you've got subluxations, if you've got weak enzyme secretion or hydrochloric acid production, you can't digest your food, well, your small and your large intestine have to compensate for that. And it can cause these issues. So when the bowel becomes toxic and you're constipated, what are some symptoms that people can have, or health conditions can people have when you have bowel toxicity? Well, here's a short list. Again, there's a cause and effect relationship in the body. It's a lot of stuff, huh? Now, the last thing we got to talk about is constipation and diarrhea. Aren't you glad you guys came out this morning? Oh, man. I love this stuff. Anyway, what causes constipation and diarrhea? Well, again, weak digestion, leaky gut. Undigested food leaks across the intestinal lining. So what does the body have to do to balance this out? Water follows the undigested food into the body to try to balance it out. So when water leaves the bowel, you get constipated. When the opposite happens, weak digestion, and this usually falls along with people's inability to digest carbohydrates, which then leads to toxicity in the bowel. So then what does the body do? Well, it tries to neutralize that. Let's dump water into the bowel and get this stuff out of here. Okay? There's your diarrhea. You guys starting to see how simple this is? Pretty easy, right? Not so much, right? All right. You ever feel like this? We all have these days, right? All right. So, to summarize, there is a cause and effect relationship in the body. Health challenges do not simply come about due to randomness. Okay? What's the first thing that has to happen? Well, stress. Men. How does your body fight men? Through muscle contraction, right? Subluxations, posture deviations. This decreases vagal tone to the gut, creates enzyme deficiencies, leaky gut, dysbiosis, bowel toxicity, get digestion symptoms. And it's not just about digestion symptoms, as you can see. That bowel toxicity chart, it could be any chronic, unresolved health challenge. So as you can see, that there's the sequence of baking a cake that has to occur. So then how do you heal? Well, you've got to hit the priority first. You got to understand, homeostasis in the body and innate intelligence, like your body is very, very smart. It knows exactly what to do. It has all the instructions. It just needs to be supported. So it's kind of like the mob. You get to the top dog who makes the decisions, everybody else will follow the chain of command. So everything that I just showed you today is kind of just like background information for you guys to understand how the digestion system actually works. But now you can forget about it, right? Now, if we can understand how the body works and take care of the top dog, we don't have to outsmart the body. We just have to give it what it needs and support normal function in order for it to do its job. So the first thing that needs to be done is you have to identify where the source of stress is. It may not be about eliminating it, because sometimes you can't. Let's face it, life is life, and life hits us hard sometimes. It does. So it's not about completely eliminating it, but it's about managing it better. It's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you handle it, okay? Once we identify the source of stress, we try to manage it better. And as my mentor, Dr. Loomis, what he says is that, it's like, I'm not saying you can't listen to rock and roll. Let's just turn down the volume some to give the body a fighting chance so that it can actually heal, okay? Next thing that needs to be done is you've got to restore communication between your gut and your brain. You have to get chiropractic adjustments to help restore normal function in the nervous system. Cleaning up the diet, again, not being about perfect, 80-20. Taking the right enzyme supplements to heal the lining of the gut, to strengthen the digestion, restore the microbiome, and clean up the bowel toxicity. And then you got to give the body time. Time for it to heal and do its thing. To heal leaky gut, depending on how long you've had issues, can take anywhere between 3, 6 months, maybe even a year. Okay? So it just depends. Now, healthier eating habits. People try to make diet so complex. It's really not. Eat organic fruits and vegetables. Stick to your wild-caught fish. All that farm-raised stuff is genetically modified and it's toxic to the body. So avoid that like the plague. Grass-fed beef, pasture-raised eggs, organic chicken and turkey. In this day and age, you have to eat organic as much as humanly possible. And if it's not organic, you have to make sure that it's non-GMO, because that stuff is going to poison your gut. I have people who come to me that are gluten sensitive and can go over to Europe and eat bread and gluten fine and not have the same effects. Because outside the United States, people actually care about their citizens and their health. So genetically modified foods are banned in some countries, and if they're not banned, they're labeled, so you actually have the choice. So you have to be able, it really is hard, it's getting harder and harder to eat healthy and clean here. It really, really is. Sit and eat in a calm state, right? How many of us eat on the go, right? We don't make the time to sit and eat. I mean, who likes to eat? It's fun. So sit and make the time to eat. Chew your food. We call this the fork rule. Try this. Let me know how it goes. You sit down to eat your meal, take a bite of food, put your fork down, and then chew, and chew, and chew, and chew, and chew, and chew some more, and then chew some more, and chew some more. When you're done, no, keep going, right? Each bite should become like a liquid soup to allow the saliva and the enzymes in the mouth to mix with it before you swallow it. If you do this effectively, and then you pick up your fork and take your next bite, you're going to notice 2 things. Number 1, your jaw's going to hurt. You're not used to chewing that much. And number 2, you're going to eat less food. Okay? And portion control. Because remember, our stomach does not have teeth. So if you don't mechanically break it up in your mouth, it's going to make your digestion system harder to work. Okay.
This is his favorite part.
The power of enzymes. All right. So I've got fresh oatmeal that I made this morning. Okay. We're going to put half of it in there and half of it in here. Now these cups have now become your stomach. So as you can see, look at the consistency of it, right? Regular oatmeal. Okay? So I'm going to take a digestive enzyme and And I'm going to open one up and dump it in. So this is going to be the control, and this is going to be the stomach, and this is going to be the one that the enzymes are in. And we're going to mix this up. So no enzymes. Enzymes. I don't know, can you notice the difference already?
As our paint strip, I got.
Hey, Mother Nature provides. So what, maybe 60 seconds has passed?
Yeah. Wow.
Look at all that. This is the control. See the difference?
Yeah.
How cool is that? Okay, so that is the power of enzymes, okay? Now, how do you know where to start? Well, you probably don't. This is where I come into play, is that getting tested to do a digestion evaluation, okay? So there's certain pieces of information that we need. Well, we have to do a food log of everything that you're eating and drinking. I have my patients do that for 6 days. And it's very surprising when patients come in, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize I ate so terribly, right? That is like my common response to most of my patients. Number 2 is there's a symptom survey that I have you fill out. It goes through all the different organ systems and body processes that talk about symptoms with each one. So we have you complete that. Then there's a digestive exam. There's a physical exam that's done that tells me about nutritional status in the body. And then there's an integrated urinary count that we do that tells me from a chemistry perspective how your body is actually digesting your food. And what this does is it's a kit that I give you that you take home and you collect your urine for a 24-hour period. And what this does, and you send a sample of this into the lab. Now, what this evaluates is it looks at bowel toxicity, dietary stress, absorption rate, mineralization, electrolytes, tonicity, kidney concentration, vitamin C, catabolism. So basically what this tells me from a chemistry perspective, it tells me what is breaking, what organs are involved, and what is broken. And all this is from a digestion perspective. So a couple testimonials, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. So Paula was a patient that came to me a few years ago, and Paula would wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning. Well, her migraines would wake her up at 4 a.m. in the morning, anywhere between 2 to 4 times a month. She then would proceed to vomit for 2 to 3 hours until there's nothing left in her, okay? And she's been dealing with this since 1988. She's been passed around from neurologist to neurologist to specialist. She's been to one chiropractor and has received one adjustment in her entire life. So she comes to me, and I'm like, all right, well, we got some work to do, you know? So did an exam on her, started with getting her adjusted. We evaluated her digestion system. We took both of them and did them both at the same time. And it took about 2 months. Headache-free, migraine-free, her digestion system is strong, not a problem. Now, when Paula gets a headache, it's more of a tension headache. It doesn't debilitate her. And she knows it's because she has either emotional stress or she's fallen off her diet. So much better, okay? Colette was a 6-month-old baby that her parents were physically and emotionally exhausted because ever since Colette was born, she slept maybe 60 to 90 minutes at a time. Kicking, screaming, colicky, bloated. They took her to 7 different specialists. They all said the same thing. Oh, she's on the wrong formula. So they changed the formula several times. Nothing happened. They came to me and found me and just took a look at her, and like her upper cervicals were subluxated, her pelvis was all twisted from the birth. So her spine was basically twisted like this. So when your spine is twisted like a dish rag, it's going to negatively affect the digestion or the nervous system and affect all the organs. So I started adjusting her twice a week. I gave her some digestive enzymes to put in the formula, and it took 2 to 3 weeks, baby back to normal. Sleeping 5-6 hours at a time, longer, like a normal baby should. So when you support normal function, it really does make a big difference.